You know exactly what you do. Someone gets close, and something in you shifts. Not dramatically. You don't blow up the relationship or say something cruel or make a scene. You just quietly start making yourself harder to reach. You get busy. You become a little more difficult, a little more guarded. You stop being as warm as you were at the beginning, and you tell yourself, it's just because you're being realistic now. You're not in the honeymoon phase anymore. This is just what things look like when they get real. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is that someone is getting close enough to hurt you, and every part of you that has ever been hurt before is pulling up the drawbridge. And you've been doing this for so long, you don't even notice it anymore. This video is not about an ogre who lives in a swamp. It's about you, and the walls you built so long ago that you've started calling them personality. Shrek did not start out closed off. Nobody does. Something happened. Maybe it was one thing. Maybe it was 100 small things that accumulated over years until the lesson your nervous system learned was that people who get close eventually cause damage. And the most efficient way to avoid that damage was to make sure people didn't get close in the first place. So you made yourself hard to reach. You built the swamp. You put up the keep out signs. And for a while, it worked. Nobody got in. Nobody hurt you. You were safe. And safe started to feel like strength. That's the thing about walls. They don't feel like fear from the inside. They feel like wisdom. Like you've learned something that naive people haven't learned yet. Like you understand how this works, and your understanding is what protects you. But the protection and the isolation are the same thing. And the longer you live inside both of them, the harder it becomes to tell them apart. Watch Shrek at the beginning of the film. He is not miserable. That is the important detail that most people miss. He is comfortable. He has a system. He knows exactly who he is and exactly what his life looks like. And there are no surprises and no vulnerabilities and nothing that can hurt him. And he is completely alone. And he has decided that completely alone is better than the alternative. You've made that calculation too. Maybe not as dramatically as building a literal swamp, but you've made it. You've decided at some point that the risk of letting someone in was not worth what letting them in might cost you. And you built your version of the swamp. Maybe it looks like always being a little too busy. Maybe it looks like keeping things light and surface level so nothing ever gets real enough to matter. Maybe it looks like leaving before things get serious. Maybe it looks like finding reasons why this specific person isn't quite right, isn't quite ready, isn't quite enough. Because if they're not enough, then you never have to find out whether you are. Psychologists call this an avoidant attachment style, and it doesn't develop because someone decided to be difficult. It develops because someone learned, usually early, usually from someone they loved, that closeness comes with a cost, that the people who are supposed to stay sometimes don't, that vulnerability is not safe, and the nervous system, which is very good at protecting you, built a system around that lesson. The system works. That's the problem, because the system that protects you from being hurt is the exact same system that keeps you from being loved, and it is so efficient and so automatic that most of the time you don't even realize it's running. You just notice that things never quite get to where you want them to get, that there's always a reason it doesn't work out, that you keep finding yourself in the same place, wondering why connection always seems just out of reach. Let's go back to the movie and listen to Shrek himself explain it in his own words. Early on, when Donkey first tries to tag along, Shrek lays it out plain.
People take one look at me and go, "Ah, help, run!"
There it is, the justification. The story he tells himself to make the isolation feel noble instead of lonely. Sound familiar? You don't push people away because you're mean. You do it because you've seen what happens when they get close. They see the ogre part first, the rough edges, the past hurts, the things that don't fit the fairy tale, and they run. Or worse, they stay long enough to confirm your fears. So you decide, better off alone, but Donkey doesn't buy it. He sees through the roar. Right after Shrek tries to scare him off, Donkey starts singing his little heart out. Shrek shuts it down immediately, flat, defensive, because that song is poking at the very thing he spent years burying, the quiet ache underneath the comfort of the swamp. Later, when Donkey keeps pushing to come home with him, Shrek explodes with the line that defines the whole defense mechanism.
I want I'll go with you.
Hey, I told you, didn't I? You're not coming home with me.
My swamp. Me. Nobody else. That's the mantra. That's the wall talking. You've said versions of this to yourself, maybe out loud to someone trying to get closer. I need my space. I'm fine on my own. This is just how I am. It feels like a boundary, but it's really a moat. And Donkey, being Donkey, still doesn't leave. He even calls it out directly when Shrek complains about him building a wall through the middle of the swamp.
I would think of all people you would recognize a wall when you see one.
Shrek pauses for a second, then brushes it off.
But the wall's supposed to go around my swamp, not through it.
Classic. The walls are so normal to him that he doesn't even see them as walls anymore. They're just how things are. The swamp isn't a prison. It's home. The solitude isn't loneliness. It's peace. Until someone like Donkey refuses to respect the signs and starts chipping away at the foundation. As the story moves forward, Shrek tries to keep the system running even while on the quest. When Donkey gets too close to the truth about his feelings for Fiona, Shrek doubles down on the layers metaphor, that famous onion scene.
Ogres are like onions.
He's not just talking about ogres, he's talking about the protective shell he's built, the outer gruffness, the sarcasm, the I don't need anybody attitude that keeps people from reaching the softer parts inside. Donkey pushes back in his goofy way.
Everybody loves cakes. Cakes have layers.
But Shrek isn't ready to hear that some people might actually like what's underneath if you just let them peel back a few layers without roaring at them. The movie shows us what happens when the walls stay up too long. Shrek almost loses Fiona because he can't admit he cares. He almost sends Donkey away for good. At one point, the pain of potential rejection makes him revert hard. He yells again, trying to reclaim the old safety. But by then, the swamp doesn't feel as comfortable as it used to. Because once you've tasted real connection, even if it's messy and annoying and scary, the old isolation starts to feel less like wisdom and more like a cage you built yourself. That's the turning point most people miss. Shrek doesn't suddenly become an extrovert or tear down every boundary. He just stops using the swamp as a permanent hiding place. He lets Donkey in. He lets Fiona see the real him. And yeah, it hurts sometimes. There are misunderstandings. There are moments where the old fears flare up and he wants to run back to the mud and the quiet. But the alternative, staying completely alone forever, starts to feel like the real tragedy. You see it in the quiet moments too. After the big fights, when Shrek finally says,
I'm sorry. I guess I am just a big, stupid, ugly ogre.
he is just a big, stupid, ugly ogre and asks, "Can you forgive me?" And Donkey replies, "That is what friends are for." Simple. No grand speech. Just the beginning of trust. The crack in the wall that lets light in. This pattern isn't unique to fairy tales or avoidant attachment textbooks. It's human. Your nervous system isn't broken for learning to protect you. It did its job when you needed it most. Those early lessons, the rejections, the abandonments, the times closeness came with a hidden cost. They wired you for safety first. The swamp was adaptive back then. It kept you from drowning. But now the swamp is flooding your chances at real love, real friendship, real depth. The same mechanisms that once saved you are now starving the parts of you that want to be known. You keep people at arm's length and then wonder why your arms feel so empty. You call your guardedness independence or realism or knowing my worth, but deep down, you suspect it's still fear wearing a wiser mask. The good news, the part the movie gets so beautifully right, is that the walls aren't permanent. They're not your personality. They're just a survival strategy that you can update when you're ready. It doesn't happen by forcing yourself to be vulnerable with everyone all at once. It happens in small, scary steps, like letting Donkey stick around, even when he talks too much, like admitting out loud that maybe you're not better off completely alone, like risking that someone might see the layers underneath the ogre and decide to stay anyway. Shrek's story doesn't end with him tearing down the entire swamp. He still has his quiet spots, he still has boundaries, but he stops making solitude his only option. He lets in the people who are willing to see past the roar and the mud, and in doing so, he discovers that the risk of being hurt is real, but so is the reward of being loved. You've been running the same protective script for years, the busyness, the emotional distance, the I'm fine. That really means don't get any closer. It's time to notice when it's running, to catch yourself when you start building the next little wall, to ask, is this wisdom, or is this the old fear talking again? Because the truth is, nobody starts out as the ogre in the swamp. We become that way after enough lessons that closeness equals danger. But we don't have to stay there. The drawbridge can come down. The signs can be rewritten. The swamp can become a home you share instead of a fortress you defend. It won't feel natural at first. Your nervous system will scream that you're in danger the moment someone starts getting past the outer layers. That's okay. That's expected. The system was built to be efficient, but you can teach it a new lesson, that not everyone who gets close will hurt you, that some people, the right ones, will see the big stupid ugly ogre and stick around anyway. They'll sing their annoying songs, call out your walls, and remind you that you don't actually have to do life alone. And slowly, the isolation that once felt like strength will start to feel like what it always was, a quiet kind of loneliness, wearing armor. You don't have to burn the whole swamp down overnight. Just start by letting one persistent donkey stay a little longer, forgive a little faster, risk saying the vulnerable thing instead of retreating into busyness. Peel back one layer and see what happens, because on the other side of the walls isn't guaranteed pain. Sometimes it's waffles in the morning, a dragon for a friend, and a life that feels bigger than the safety you once mistook for freedom. The movie ends with Shrek realizing he's not better off alone. He's better with his people, messy, loud, imperfect as they are. You can write that same ending for yourself. The swamp was never the destination. It was just the place you went when you needed to heal. Now it's time to step out of it. The world might still have its fairy tale judgments and its running and its help run moments, but somewhere out there are the donkeys and Fionas who will look at all your layers and say, yeah, I like onions, or at least they'll stay long enough to find out what's underneath. And that's worth lowering the drawbridge for.